Hello. In our last lecture, we looked into HTTP request and response messages. We had a basic study of the headers. In this, we'll study more in detail, analyze each of the headers, and then see how do they work. To study those headers, we would basically need to open the browser and see how does it work. Either we can use the Firefox or Chrome. In this, we'll look at the Firefox. Let's look at how to open the Firefox browser. So we'll open the Firefox. Firefox, open a new tab window, open a new window. Now we go to the settings, go to web developer here, web developer user network. You see screen get split. So in the bottom part of the screen here, if you look at, this is what you'll see, the activity there. This we can probably close. And upper part, what you'll see is this actual web content. So if I access something, rpsecurity.com, you'll see a page coming up there and you see the actual request that happens, and that is what we'll use it to study the our HTTP headers. Now everything may not be available directly on the web, so I would strongly recommend on your machine, whether Linux or Apache, the Linux or Windows, install your own web server so that will be very helpful to understand the way the protocol works. Let's look at the role that we took an example last time. The role the content type plays. We said if content type is text HTML, you will see a formatted output. If content type is text plain, you see a simple web page dump output. And let's see how the content type plays the role. So let's open these two web pages. First, we'll open the page welcome.html. Then open the same page. Both contents are same as you see. And then we'll see, do they really play a role there? How does content type play the same content? Let's go to our Firefox browser. We're going to Firefox. We'll go here to /workshops web. You can actually see here, if you look at welcome.html, welcome.txt, they're same time, both are size 209. When we click on welcome.html, you'll see a content, the page comes in, and select this URL and see, you can look at, let me move a little bit so that we can study here. See the response header, it says content type is text HTML. And because the text HTML, browser interprets to be HTML content, it does a nice formatting, and that's the way it works. We'll access the same content now, saying welcome.txt. Now see, we actually get the content, not a formatting, and primary reason is because content type, let's look at the content type now. Content was says text plain. Because content type is text plain, browser is told that it's a plain simple text, no formatting is to be done, and browser actually does the display the content as it is. Same way, let's look at the image. We'll go back to our image. It works of IMG has a list of images. See a lot of images there. So if I click on image01.jpg, you can probably see here. Let's say image01.jpg. I click on this, you'll see a nice image coming up, probably gets formatted, and mainly because if you look at this URL, it says content type is image JPG. Because content type is image, formatted JPG, browser interprets as an image file and formats it and displays as a JPEG file. But if I look at the same content, which is image10.txt, if you look at same size 16K, but if I click on this, the web server would send content type as text plain, things a text file, and look what you get in the browser. You see all gibberish, and mainly because if you look at the content type here, contents were text plain. So web browser says a plain text and try to display the data, which is all binary something. So whenever you access a web and you see something this kind of gibberish content, that basically means the developer or the web server is not setting a proper content header type, content type, and that's the reason browser playing junk. And you can look at, analyze those, and that's the way things will work. So we've taken the example of images, JPEG, images, text. We also look at HTML. So understand the role of header content type, which is very crucial in getting a right content. Another header is called location. Basically, if you look at the web, most of the time, whenever I access web, let's say google.com, it automatically redirects to the HTTPS. So when you say, or SW, so when you say google.com, it redirects you to HTTP colon www.google.com, and that is when web page is displayed. So how does that work? Because in the page, server gives a response status code 302, 302, because the status code 302, it knows, and there is a header value called location. From there it determines the content and see that. Let's look at the google.com. Go to the browser again. Let's go to Firefox browser. Let's access google.com. We'll access google.com. And you see what has happened. We access google.com and look at what has happened here. We're getting a status code response as 301, say move permanently. So we actually access the URL google.com. The web server response status code 301. It says this location has moved, and what is the new location? It will give the new URL in the field location, and you say this location www.google.com. And now the browser, when you get this response, it will go to make a new request with www.google.com, and that is what it probably does here. If we look at, it makes a request here. Here we are making a request. Now say http google.com, and then it try to make an access, and that's how things work. And we get success code 2 and OK, and this is how the header content type really works. You can look at the command lines. You can even look at this even wget command. So let's show even wget the headers. How does it work? Let me go to my command line window. Let's open the window and go there. Let me clear it up. Increase the font. -D displays the headers, and we can say http colon google.com and see what would happen. If we look at, go back, we accessed google.com. So these are the request headers sent by wget. Look at what the response is. It says protocol HTTP 1.0, status code 301. It's going to move permanently, and the header it gives is location http colon www.google.com. Now the the browser makes a new request to this new user, and see this is the next request. You'll basically see at the end it makes a new request resolving this. So this part is done. Now try to access this. It's resolving this, get the address, caching, connecting, and now sends a request, and host name is this, and now you actually get different web page, and you can look at that. So you can use wget to see headers. You can do curl command as we've seen there. You can use the curl command with -i, wget with -d, and you can debug any headers and see those. There are other headers we can look at. Sometimes you see some people get content in Hindi, but in English. Let's say I want to get a content from Google in different language. So can I set my language settings? So I need to specify as a browser what are my language settings are. So let's go to Firefox back again. So let's access google.com. This is what we are getting. You see content, everything happening is in English. And that is because if you look at my request headers, I say accept language, English US, and Hindi happens to be, if you look at, first is English US, which is zero point 0.7, and then Hindi is, so can I make Hindi as my first preference? I go to my settings, I make Hindi as a first preference, English as second. When you refresh the page, you'll see that content will come in Hindi. So go to, let's say, preferences, where is the preferences here, and go to languages, and languages and appearance languages, let's say choose, and I'll move Hindi at the top position. So now Hindi is my first choice. I click on it, I am done. And now when I go to my Google, if I refresh it, you'll see आज मेरी किस्मत अच्छी है, and I'm getting my content in Hindi, says sign in. That is because now look at our request. Our headers are basically saying accept language, Hindi is the first choice, English is second choice, and the what really has happened. The moment you change the header, depending on the header, your content would come in. Similarly, if you look at, sometimes content is too big, we may want whether encoding compressed or not. So by default, most of the browsers would support header called gzip. That means content can come as compressed, and it basically would say accept all. So let's look at the headers, what we are really getting there. And look at our accept encoding. We are saying accept encoding gzip deflate. So let me give you two examples there. In the browser, by default, it will always say that. Now to have saying accept encoding, don't gzip it, will basically see a value called identity, and like they access two pages there. So let's go to our cell. I'll again clear. We say wget minus d to debug the headers, minus, I'm saying header. So first let me not give any header there, and we'll say http colon rprustigi.com / workshops.html. You will see it will display the header and give the content length we'll look at. It says we got a response, and it says content type plain, accept ranges, vary accept encoding, and content length is coming 3229, and that's the content we are getting. Now but in my request, I haven't said accept encoding, the deflate gzip. Now I'll pass this header with wget and see we'll get the same content, but content length would be varied, and it will say encoding is gzip. So let's accept the same head request. We'll do that, and we just say header is equal to accept encoding. So this is the header, colon followed by a space, and then I have to say a value. My value is gzip colon deflate is over, and now see I'll get the same content, but my content length would be after compression, and header would say it is compressed content. Let's look at that. So look, this is the response I made. We are also giving a header. Accept encoding is part of the request. If you look at from here, and now what my response is, it says content encoding gzip. That means content you are getting is gzip content, and the content length is 1114. Previously, without compression, the content was 3992, as we have seen before. Sorry, 3229. So depending on how do you want to behave the web, the HTTP header plays a much bigger role, and that is what primary focus of this lecture is. So to do better job, understand how HTTP header works, we look at languages. By changing, you can content a different language. So choose a preferred language, set it up, is your content. You can define whether you want compressed or not. If you do compress, you probably save the bandwidth, and this is especially useful if you are on a slow network. Similarly, you might have noticed that how does a web server knows whether you are a small screen or a mobile phone or laptop, and based on your displaced content, that is determined by the user agent. and you can see based on user agent, you'll get to know those details. Other part is you can look at the some web pages requires authentication and how does the authentication work. So basically on the web server, you define the certain directory like we're saying in this directory where www.html, CSE, I say auth type is basic for this department, and I'm putting user password information in a file, and this is the file name where my passwords are there, and then you create using a tool called htpassword. Using the tool, you create a username and password, and then deploy it. So let me show an example there. How do we really work? So I deployed my web server. Let me log into my web machine. SSS. So I'm running a Ubuntu under VM VirtualBox. So I logged into my machine, and one thing you have to do that is if you look at make sure in apache2.conf. Sorry. So there you have to make sure that in the directory, whichever your root directory is, you allow override. And by this way, for a specific directory, you can define a mechanism called .st_password and st_access. So in this directory or subdirectories, we follow this and say this will be accessed. Having done that, you can restart the sudo service Apache to restart. So now I'll go to where www.html and say private. Here you have created a file called htxs where I'm saying or type it basic authentication, which is called base64 encoding, and I'm saying but passwords are given in file from root where www.html private slash .st password, and we're saying this what should be displayed for auth user this and require user test. That means to access this page, we need a user TEST. Now let's look at what we have in the password here .st password. I have two user CSE, but because I have said require user test, only test user would work. And for the test user, password happens to be HTML. How to create a new user? You can always say st password, a file name where w private dot st password. Give a username. Let's say new user. Let's say my given username as rpr. It will ask me a password. I say some password, which is the password. Sorry, there's error there. So let me create password is password. It's created. So if you see this file, you got third user appear. Now when I access this page, it's going to ask me username, password, and then we'll be able to see that. So let's click on my page, http colon my w, which is my local, slash private slash auth.html. Oh, already, so I need to remove the cache first. Let me clear all the details because my page data is there. Let me clear it up. Clear data, nothing should be maintained there, otherwise the result is seeing that clear. Now I got it. Now let me refresh it. No, I think my caching is not cleared. It's asking you, it says, look, it's requesting username, password, site says This is what we put in the information here. Auth test, you look at the content here in the more.htaccess. We are saying for auth test, whatever display will come in here, saying for auth test, user is test, passes HTML, and we're saying for auth test, user is test. So if I access something else, let's say user is test, but password I'm again putting a test, it will fail. It will give me an error. So till I enter this test and let's say HTML, then you would see, or let me even say how the basic body works. Let me give new pass, it will fail. Let me cancel it. Go to the again debug setting, web developer, network, so that we can see what it is happening. Refresh it. I'll say test HTML. Okay, you see content is coming up, and now you see the request headers. My request header, it basically says authorization is the field, basic, and my username passwords are test and HTML are getting base64 encoded. So I would suggest search it to learn how base 64 encoding works. That is what the basic authentication is, and this will be good to understand. So essentially, base 64 means 64 characters, which are 26 capital alphabets, 26 small case alphabets, 10 digits make it 62, and then so basically you have capital A to capital Z, small a to small z, then 0 to 9, and then two more characters called plus and backslash, and there's one character which is filler, which is space character. So all the things will always go in these 64 characters. You see this what you basically get. And that's how the authentication basically works. There are more headers, but do not go to more details. You can look at the date, connections for keep alive, my version, which kind of multimedia enterprise mail extension content, whether photo, video, something. There are other headers, host. If your website hosts multiple websites, you can specify this website, which kind of headers you can really accept. If you click on a link, or seeing a web page, you click on a link, and then see the web page, you'll see header from where you are coming. That's what the referrer is. So let me give example of referrer if I can do that. Let's go to Firefox again. So let's say setting up authorization. Let me not so or let me go to the other part of it. So here, let's say if I click on, let's say mixed pure.html and see, we click on this request headers, you see a referrer, it says we came from this site. So this is how the normally ad works. When you click on a link, particularly on the ad company knows you came from this, and this how by following the referrer, the next person knows what is your base, and that's how they will charge you money or ad or track the ads where things have come from. Similarly, look at the other headers, where they look at content type, we look at content length. There are more caching headers there, which will basically see e tag expired. This will study in our next lecture. How does the caching work? To get more details into all the headers, the standard is given by RFC2616, which is the standard for HTTP protocol 1.1. The number of headers, so I would suggest go through those and understand. I listed few headers. There are probably 100 plus such headers, and look at those. And this is for you to explore and work out yourself. Finally, as an exercise, I would say either use Chrome or Firefox, either of the two. Open it, open the web developer tools, and analyze the headers. So access a page, identify authentication, you can access any site which authenticates and see how does HTTP header works. Or if you want to try with my even own website, you can probably try. It will ask you for, let's say, Chrome browser. I'll go there. HTTP colon, sorry, works of web auth is going to ask you, and so probably it is giving an error or some problem which I need to analyze, but you can actually see the way things work up. And you see, find any website which uses the your HTTP authentication, analyze those. Second exercise is identify a web page which gives you compression. So, and some site doesn't give you compression, some gives you compression. Browser typically understand it and look at how does content length work. So using wget, you can actually save the content as it is and uncompress it, and then you can see actual content that is coming up. And that's the way this actually things would work. So for example, I can probably go to command line here. I can save my stuff. Let me exit it. Go to my, I can say wget -o abc.html.gz. I'm compressing it and I'm accessing http colon and say minus headers is equal to accept-encoding colon gzip. So this file will come because I'm doing accept-encoding, and let's also get debug header. So you'll see, and then the file will compress, will save it, uncompress it, then see actual content. Let's access this file. You see we got content length is 1114, size is gzip. Let's look at the file. You see size is 1114 and it is compressed type. Now if I do unzip, g unzip, so if you try to view it, it will be all compressed file. So if I say g unzip abc.html, it gets unzipped, and when I see ls, now see the file is 3229, and this is what actually when browser gets a gzip content, that's what it sees here. So as exercise for you, please look at the content, digit coming, compress, uncompress, the different kind of compressions, analyze those. That's all for this lecture. So what we studied, few headers examples like content type, the if content is gzip encoded, we look at the content length, we look at authentication, the authorization header, we also look at the languages, how to accept languages works, and these headers we basically looked at and then analyze the way things work out. So my advice is work out few exercises, play with different headers in day-to-day life, access typical web page what you access, using web developers tools, look at all the headers and see how to do this work. Next lecture we look at caching and we'll work with those.